This is Wisdom Anime Recap. This means war. And so, Guts and Griffith set about their fated duel until Griffith's blade found its mark, a solemn echo that sent Guts tumbling to the ground. Griffith proposed they suspend their battle until he had a chance to recover, but Guts surged forward once more. Up the hill charged a few of Griffith's loyal mercenaries, eager to defend their leader. Yet Casca stopped them, a sentinel of Griffith's decree not to intervene. Their symphony of clashing steel surged on, until Guts, in an act of desperation, wielded his sword's tip to hurl a veil of soil into Griffith's eyes. Still, Griffith defied Guts's every advance, dancing nimbly through his flurry of strikes. With an audacious leap, he perched upon the edge of Guts's outstretched sword, pointing his slim blade toward his throat. He again offered a chance to postpone their battle, so Guts clamped his teeth on his blade, a desperate gambit that propelled them both off the precipice. And when they crashed together upon the earth below, Guts's fists rained down on Griffith. The mercenaries stood agape, shocked that Griffith found himself laid low by the torrential onslaught. Yet even in the throes of this rare vulnerability, Griffith pinned Guts to the ground and issued a threat, a promise to dislocate his shoulder from its joint. Still, Guts refused to relent, so Griffith realized his threat, searing pain through Guts's frame. The mercenaries descended to sing their triumphant commander's praises as a declaration escaped Griffith's lips. Guts now belonged to him. Casca remained standing upon the cliff, her mind awash with questions, seeking to decipher the tangled tapestry of emotions and motives that bound Griffith to Guts. That night, two noblemen cast their gaze upon the band of the Hawks' encampment from their castle, discussing the mercenary group's alleged invincibility. One lord deemed them inconsequential, expendable pawns subservient to Midland. Yet the other noble envisioned a path to ascendancy by currying favor with the king through triumphant deeds, a climb which would elevate these mere mercenaries to a level closer to their own as nobles. Amidst the Hawks' encampment, Guts's thoughts were consumed by his defeat at the hands of Griffith. His introspection meandered through the labyrinth of Griffith's enigmatic essence. Although he often seemed childish and innocent, Griffith wielded his sword with the grace of a conqueror, one capable of defeating Guts with ease. He heard whispers outside his tent, notions of vengeance from the other mercenaries for his killing of their friend Dante during their initial meeting. Yet Guts remained unfazed, welcoming an excuse to help them join him. Casca's voice emerged, dismissing the notion they could ever best him in battle, even with his wounds, but Corcus cast an insinuation upon the wind. What if Casca defended Guts because she had fallen for him? Her voice bit through the night once more, threatening his life, so the mercenaries scattered, sundered by the palpable earnest that emanated from her glare. Guts emerged from his tent to offer gratitude clumsily woven into words. Her actions were a mere extension of Griffith's will, she explained, not a result of concern for whether he lived or died. On a later night outside the walls of an enemy fort, Griffith unfurled his strategy to the assembled band of the Hawk. They would first ignite the enemy's supplies, concealed behind the fort, before circling back, storming the front gates with unyielding fervor. He chose Guts to lead the rear guard's retreat after the burning. The mercenaries agreed this must have been a test for Guts. Some doubted he'd be able to perform, yet Casca knew this job was too important. Griffith had chosen Guts as a show of trust. As they treaded through a river's wrath, Guts acknowledged the elegance of Griffith's designs, citing the unpredictable nature of traveling through a violent stream, where the winds would provide cover to the sound of their movements and would redirect the smoke from the fire they would set. When the Hawks reached the enemy encampment, they set the storage tents aflame, burning their stashed food and weapons, creating an explosion that marked their retreat toward the castle gates. A fallen general, shamed by his defeat at the hands of mercenaries, ordered his heavy cavalry forth, their crossbows whispering deadly sonnets as they sang towards the rear guard. Guts bid his comrades to flee, standing his ground to face the cavalry alone. The mercenaries reconvened with Griffith at the agreed meeting point at the front gates of the fort, where Judeau described their losses as few thanks to Guts's bravery. Yet Rickert revealed to him that Guts was still lost within the Darkling Woods, so Griffith assembled a small rescue group to recover him. Guts stood on foot, as he had unmounted his horse, which had been shot by an enemy arrow. They hastened back towards the gates, where cannon fire roared like a jubilant chorus, felling the enemy cavalry. The band of the Hawk encircled Griffith with celebratory cheers in the aftermath's hush. A A revelry engulfed the castle courtyard in honor of Guts' combat prowess in spite of his absence. Guts perched upon a rampart's edge, his gaze fixated upon the night sky, contemplating Griffith's mastery of leadership. The Hawks believed in him, his judgment was flawless, and he did not shy away from action in the heat of battle. Judeau, Pippin, and Rickard approached him, effusing accolades for Guts, beckoning him to join the celebration. Yet, Guts' refusal met Pippin's brawn, who hoisted him over his shoulder, impervious to Guts' vehement protests and venomous retorts. An extended chalice stopped his grievances, as Judeau proposed a toast to their brash new friend. Guts begrudgingly yielded to the communal spirit, the mercenaries' praises echoing anew.
Stay thirsty, my friends.
As dawn's first light broke, Guts claimed his perch upon the rampart once more, where he gazed out over the mercenaries. Judeau approached him and queried Guts' musings on the Band of the Hawk. Did he truly feel he belonged amongst them? Guts had known mercenaries to be violent hoodlums, yet the Hawks seemed different, individuals he could not read. Judeau believed the distinction lay in their leader, Griffith, whose charisma whispered promises to them of destiny's embrace. In spite of the violent nature of their work, there remained a glimmer of normalcy within the Hawks' lives. Guts probed deeper, seeking insight into Griffith's true nature, yet Judeau had no answer. Frustration brewed within Guts, a tempest that threatened to breach the silence, but Judeau's gentle touch quelled the storm, coaxing him to listen. He painted a portrait of Griffith's vision, a tapestry unfurling beyond the confines of warfare. Its scope, a panorama unbounded by the limitations of a single lifetime, encompassed realms of existence even Griffith himself could scarcely fathom. Guts' mind lingered in contemplative quietude, yet a sudden intrusion, Casca's voice, interrupted their impending revelation, heralding Griffith's summons for Guts. Judeau imparted a cryptic reassurance of his ability to fit into the Band of the Hawk as Guts departed, a knowing smirk painted on his face. Guts encountered Griffith at a well, indulging in a bath. With a casual glance, Griffith welcomed him to join, but Guts hesitated, as they were no longer children, meaning bathing together platonically was an impossibility. Undeterred, Griffith doused Guts with water, breaking his resistance, leading to a playful splashing with buckets held in their hands. Their revelry ceased only when exhaustion drew upon them, yet Guts managed one final splash, settling an unspoken score. Guts' eyes fixated on Griffith's pendant, which held a tail spun by an ancient seer's hands. The Behillet, the egg of the king, Griffith elucidated its grim destiny, dominion over the world, paid with the coinage of one's own flesh and blood. As Guts cradled the artifact, its eye creaked open, igniting tremors of dread within him. Griffith admitted to not understanding how it was supposed to work, yet its prophecy ignited his curiosity. Guts questioned why he had come back to rescue him during their battle the previous day. Griffith explained that Guts was a warrior of too high a caliber to be squandered in such a trivial battle. Standing tall, he turned his gaze skyward, confiding the grand plan that the Band of the Hawk were willing to risk their lives for, a kingdom. Griffith reminded Guts of his declared ownership over him. He explained he had already chosen the place he would die for him. Guts contemplated Griffith's proclamation of claiming his own kingdom as the Band of the Hawk readied themselves for their next battle. The notion seemed like a distant dream, as Griffith had no royal blood flowing through his veins. He was only a mercenary, yet the eloquence with which he spoke made him seem worthy nonetheless. The mercenaries surged forth, their relentless charge an echo of Griffith's orders. Amidst the turmoil of battle, Guts reflected on his tumultuous past, a childhood marked by haunting memories. In the earliest days, he toiled as Gambino's armorer, his innocence tarnished by the grim sight of bodies strewn across the battlefield. Yet Gambino invalidated the fear that surged within him. Guts went on to delve into the ways of the sword under Gambino's tutelage. Humiliated by his fellow mercenaries for wielding a blade too mighty for his frame, Guts faced their mockery. Whispers swirled of his being born from a dead body, a cursed genesis that befell Gambino's wife upon adopting him, culminating with her death. In those days of constant warfare, Guts found solace amidst the chaos, a meditative trance woven from the clash of weapons and the scent of blood. He gave his wages to Gambino, a bid for affirmation from a tormented boy who yearned for paternal validation. Yet Gambino's actions remained laced with cruelty, bitterness oozing forth as Guts became an object of envy, extolled by his comrades while Gambino's ego festered in the shadows. He came upon Guts with his sword one night, accusing him of having cursed him as he had his wife, leaving Guts with no choice but to put him down in an act of self-defense. Yet the other mercenaries could not understand. They saw Gambino as a kind man for taking Guts under his wing, and now Guts as evil for biting the hand that fed him, so they pursued him and put an arrow in his back. Guts fell from the precipice of a cliff, where they left him for dead, taking with them a memory of Gambino as a good man and Guts a devil child. Guts survived, of course, his spirit clinging to life's fragile thread, rebelling against surrender, defeating a lone wolf that targeted him, driven by an instinct that defied his conscious desire for death. Yet his meandering remained aimless, his primal ferocity enmeshed with a somehow unwilling longing for survival all the way to the present day. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the battle's turmoil subsided. The earth was strewn with fallen forms, life's ephemeral dance stilled amidst the chaos. Guts and Griffith emerged from the bodies, solitary figures untouched by fate's cruel hand. Their steps led them to a solemn precipice where shadows gathered to mend their wounded spirits below the sunset. Griffith unveiled a somber truth. Their lives as mercenaries were expendable, pawns in the machinations of royalty and noblemen. Yet even the most powerful kings were subject to fate, a force that kept men moving forward with no regard for an objective purpose. Even among the rare few who succeeded in glimpsing purpose, many met their demise before their dreams could take form. A man must live, Griffith thought, one who could transcend this innate human fate, unearthing the true purpose of life. Such a man would be a god. Could this man and his vision finally give purpose to Guts's stubborn desire to live? Could he reconcile his conscious desires and his innate? He followed the band of the Hawk for the next 3 years. Tales of their prowess spread like wildfire, kindling even within the hearts of Midland's most dreaded adversaries, the Tudor troops and their Black Devils. Their hearts shook with fear as they recounted another of the band of the Hawk's monikers, the Grim Reapers of the battlefield.